Getting started in real estate can be extremely intimidating, especially if you have nobody to model after. Because not everybody that enters the industry is a legacy real estate agent, meaning somebody in their family has already been an agent before them. In fact, many new agents actually take up real estate as a second career. So yes, getting into real estate, especially with having very little knowledge about the industry, can be extremely intimidating. So I wanted to make this video and shed a bit more light, a bit more context as to what you need to do starting your real estate career. Hey, it's Jaime with Resendiz.com, where we have one of the fastest growing and largest real estate agent communities worldwide. All right, so before we begin, we need to take care of some assumptions. I'm assuming that you've already passed your real estate exam. I'm also assuming that you've already selected your association and have access to your MLS. And then I'm also assuming that you selected your real estate brokerage. So it's from that understanding and that starting point that we're going to begin. And now that the assumptions are out of the way, let's look at the one requirement that's needed in order for you to execute on the following 30 days. And that one requirement is that you work at least, and I mean at least, 5 hours every single day. So the way that I've broken up this 30-day blueprint is by breaking these up into days. And I'm making an assumption that in every single day, you're at least working 5 hours. So I certainly won't be overloading you or giving you this pie in the sky thing that you might potentially at some point possibly achieve. This is very actionable. This is very practical, but I am taking into account that you're going to at least work 5 hours. All right. So for phase one, we're going to spend educating ourselves. So we're going to spend 2 days, 2 whole days educating ourselves. This means consuming all the information that you have from your brokerage. This means taking in all of the information that you have from your MLS, from your association. This means watching as many YouTube videos as possible, reading as much as we can, really deep diving into the education part of being a real estate agent. Now, the reason that I want you to spend 2 whole days in this education mode and consuming everything possible is because I want you to get different viewpoints. I want you to see and hear what the cold callers are saying. I want you to see and hear what the digital marketers are saying. I want you to really absorb as much as possible because it's these different perspectives that are going to allow you to grow as a real estate agent much faster. Now, when I used to give this challenge to my agents, I would just leave it at that. Just say, hey, go and spend 2 days in education, come back, let's schedule another Zoom call and continue. Well, the challenge with that was people went all over the board. Agents went this way, that way, this other way, and just really got down these rabbit holes that didn't really help all that much. So to help you along, to really help advance you, we need to look at least 2 outcomes, meaning that with this consumption of all the education that you're about to embark on, you need to at least have 2 outcomes. And the first one is you need to map out what a real estate transaction actually looks like. This one outcome is going to help you tremendously, especially as a new real estate agent, because it's so easy to get lost in a transaction, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So by you having the assignment of mapping out what a real estate transaction looks like, you are taking all of the information from the internet and really putting it in its appropriate category. You're able to place what working with clients looks like, what negotiation looks like, how to convert those past clients into referrals. You're able to put people in the correct timeline or the correct information in the correct timeline so you can make better use of the information. And the second outcome in this phase of education is you need to establish your goals, and also you need to identify the metrics that you're going to track every single month. It's incredibly important that you establish your goals so you're able to measure against yourself. You're not playing the comparison game of that agent has closed 30 transactions in their first year. That agent closed 2 transactions. That agent closed 100. We're not into that. What we're into is establishing our goals, and we're going to establish the metrics that we're going to use in order to see if we're going to hit those goals. And if we're falling behind a few months after we got started, then we can make some adjustments after the fact. But if there's no goals in place, then we're just shooting in the dark. All right, so for phase 2, we're going to do some admin stuff. We're also going to take 2 days to do this. This is plenty of time to accomplish this. We're going to order some business cards, create our professional email signatures. We're going to get some professional headshots. But most importantly, we're going to make sure that we have access to every portal, every login that we need. You must ensure that you have access to your MLS. You must ensure that you have access to your CRM. if your brokerage is providing this to you. Any portal that you need access to, make sure that you have access to it. Also, there's many communities or many areas that have e-keys now, so you need to make sure that you can access the digital lockboxes. And it's in this admin stage that I also included creating your social media. So if you don't have an Instagram, now would be a great time to do that. If you don't have a Facebook, now would also be a great time to do it. But if you happen to have all the social media platforms out there already, then we need to revamp them. We need to make them a bit more professional. And when I'm saying make it professional, I'm not saying overdo it. You don't need to make it corporate. What you need to do is at bare minimum, let people in your social sphere know that you're a real estate agent. Being a secret agent does not work. So at bare minimum, when people go to your Facebook profile, they need to know that you're a real estate agent. And what you're going to find in the creation of your social media, and what you're also going to find in the creation of all of the other logins, such as your Zillow profiles, your Google My Business profiles, your Trulia profiles, all these other profiles, you're going to find that they ask for descriptions of what you do. So these set up questions by these social media profiles and other industry profiles that you have access to are a great precursor to your value proposition. This is a great opportunity for you to create that. You need to create your value proposition. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do what you're doing? And all that fun stuff. So this is why on this admin phase, we're giving it 2 full days, because some of you, including myself for the longest time, have no idea why we're doing this. So we need to create that value proposition that then we can translate over to our website. We can translate over to our Facebook, over to our LinkedIn, and all the other profiles that we need to fill out. And as far as outcomes for this phase, we need to make sure that we have access to all the portals and have all the logins that we need. And also, we need to look the part on all of those profiles. Okay, so for phase 3, we're doing some role playing. We're gonna allocate 2 more days to this. So keeping this in context, we gave 2 days to phase 1, 2 days to phase 2, and we're gonna spend 2 more days here in this role playing phase. This is where we bring everything together. This is where we start role playing. This is where we start practicing like we play. So we start showing homes, even though we have no clients and nobody's working with us, we're gonna go through the actual process. We're gonna go through the motions of actually showing a home. And the scenarios that you need to be practicing are very simple. We need to practice speaking with the leads. What are we going to say when we have them on the phone or in front of us? We need to practice our listing presentations. How are we going to do those presentations that are going to convince those homeowners to use us? We also need to practice our buying consultations. How can we bring enough trust to those home buyers so they can hire us as their agent? We also need to practice showing homes. So this means you logging into the MLS, finding a home to show, and go and do a pre-showing, because at this point you probably don't have a client. We also need to practice negotiating and contracting. So once you have that home, what paperwork, what forms, what documents do you need to execute with your client? And we also need to practice our contract to close. How are we going to manage the contract along the way? And I know this sounds like a lot, because it is. However, this is the actual real estate agent portion. This is what you're going to do day in and day out. Unfortunately, as a starting newbie, as a new real estate agent, you won't have too many opportunities to practice with real-time clients. So you need to manufacture those opportunities. And trust me, by you doing this, you're going to accelerate your growth, because you're not going to feel uneasy. You're not going to feel anxious. You're not going to feel stressed out when that first lead calls you and freak out trying to figure out, what am I going to say? And I wish I could say that I followed my own advice back in the day when I first started. Well, unfortunately, I didn't, because there was no blueprint. This was me just figuring it out myself. So I still remember showing my very first house to my very first client. I couldn't even get into the house because I didn't know how to operate the Supra, which is our digital lockbox. So please avoid the embarrassment and start the role playing now. And in phase number 4, we need to establish a game plan. We need to create that game plan to generate business. I really wanted to give this phase 1 day, but based off of the feedback that I've received from real estate agents, I pushed it to 2 days. So in this phase as well, you're receiving 2 full days to generate your game plan to generate business. And the strategy that I subscribe to and that I teach my real estate agents is a 2-1-3. That is focusing on 2 active strategies to generate business, 1 passive strategy to generate business, and 3 social media platforms to leverage leverage for your real estate business. This means that you need to identify 2 active strategies that are for now business. This means cold calling. This means door knocking. This means open housing. This means sphere of influence. This means working on strategies that at any one moment can pop off and generate business. Now we need to identify those 2 active strategies that we're going to execute in the following days. So those 2 strategies, not only do we need to identify them, but we also need to know how to execute on them. So if you decided I want to do open houses as one of my strategies, then you need to figure out how they actually work. That's why you're getting 2 full days to complete this task. The passive strategies are for later business. So if you decide YouTube is it, we need to figure out how that works. If you decide that blogging is it, we also need to figure out how that works. So here you're looking at 3 strategies, 2 active and 1 passive, that need to start bringing in some business for you. And then with the 3 social media platforms, one of those platforms you're going to live in every single day, 7 days a week. Another platform we're going to live in 5 days a week. So that's going to be a platform that we're pretty proficient in. And then the third platform, that one's just going to be your Hail Mary, your hopefully something happens, but I'm not going to spend too much time here. So you're going to be spending 3 days a week there. So 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 3 days a week. So notice here, we're not looking to boil the ocean. We want to be as targeted as possible. We can't master every single strategy. We can't do radio ads. We can't do billboards. We can't run Facebook ads. We can't run Google ads. We can't do direct mail marketing. We can't do email marketing. We can't be cold calling everybody. That's just not possible. So we need to take all those strategies, condense them down into something that we can execute on every single day. Now, if you want a more complete explanation of this strategy that I call the 2-1-3, then check out this video right here where I go into that particular strategy in depth. And for phase 5, guess what? We're performing. We're actually executing on what we've created. We're going to spend the next 2 weeks, not days anymore, the next 2 weeks in actually working in our craft. Now, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to focus on 3 things. We're going to be focused on prospecting for now, leveraging those 2 active strategies. Now, in this phase, notice that I didn't really make room for showing clients around or working with clients because chances are you're not going to have secured a client that quickly. Now, many of you will. That's awesome. That's great. But at the same time, you're not going to be as busy as you will be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because you're just starting out. So you're just getting out of the station, right? You're starting to generate your book of business. So here for the next 2 weeks, there's probably not going to be anybody that calls you or DMs you or texts you saying, hey, help me buy a house. That's probably not going to happen. If it does, great, awesome, praise God, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, we need to control the controllables, and the controllables that we have are those 4 actions that we just talked about. Now, phase 5 took us from day 9 to day 23. And all of that is performance. All of that is execution that we just talked about. For phase 6, it's going to take us 1 day. And that's where we reevaluate what we just did. In this phase, this is where we get honest with ourselves. This is where we look back at our previous 2 weeks and really look at what is working and what is not. Because after 2 weeks of consistent work, you're at least going to see some trends, some patterns come up. Yes, of course, with a longer time frame, there's going to be more data, but we're trying to get this done within 30 days. So every 2 months you can do this. Every quarter you can do this. Every half a year you can do this. Don't push it anything beyond that. You want to be reassessing what you're doing in your business more consistently than once a year. So New Year's resolutions is not the time to look back at your business. You need to put in some natural pit stops along the way to reevaluate. But for our purposes today, as we just started, we need to look back at those 2 weeks and see what's working, where am I spending too much time, what's really uncomfortable for me that just does not get simpler for me. Do I need to readjust? This is a great little pit stop for you. Now, I'm not saying give up on what your goals are. I'm also not saying give up on the strategies that you laid out at the beginning of this and give up on them simply because it's hard or it wasn't as simple as you thought it would be. What I'm saying is reevaluate the metrics or the goals that you set out in each one of those strategies. So if you had a strategy of cold calling and you originally told yourself, I'm going to call 1,000 people, and you quickly recognize that is not possible, then now we can set it back to something that is actually reasonable, something that's actually achievable. Another example is if you identify identified open housing as one of your strategies and you quickly found out that in this market it's incredibly difficult to do because the inventory just isn't there. So if you have the plan of doing 4 to 6 open houses in a weekend, you quickly found out that that's going to be a little bit more challenging than you thought. Well, now would be a great time to reassess that. And for phase number 7, which takes us from day 25 to day 30, we're going back to performance. We call this Perform 2.0. This is where you go back to prospecting for now business, for later business, building your personal brand, and continue your role playing. So basically, you're doing what you were doing already in phase 5, which is a performance aspect, but here you're retooling with a better sense of what you're doing. Now, here's the thing. This video and this strategy, this blueprint works regardless if you're a brand new agent or a seasoned agent. Anybody that's looking to take their real estate business to that next level, this is the video for you. Now, if you're looking for a more complete blueprint with scripts, with actionable items, with all that fun stuff, then I'm going to link it down below for you to check out. And while you're down in the description box, you might as well hit that subscribe button because I've noticed that 80% of you are not subscribed.